This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. Coming up on the show today, we'll speak to the man behind the young MAGA movement who made the Republican Party cool again. The leftist media meltdowns over Stephen Colbert's axing is getting even crazier. And the future of the Democrats? Well, Tim Walz insists that he won't run in 2028, but there are calls to make Hunter Biden the face of the party. I'm not even kidding. Let's get straight into it. Joining us now is CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair. CJ Pearson, it is great to speak with you. You've been involved with the Republican Party for some time now, and during the election, you advised the Trump campaign on its social media strategy, which was incredible. Earlier this month, you landed in Time's list of most influential online creators, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts because in the election, we saw this significant shift to the right among Gen Z voters. What do you put it down to? Why did this happen?
Well, thank you so much for having me first and foremost. But I gotta tell you, I think we just had an incredible product to sell. You know, President Trump ran on an incredible platform of America First policies that connected with America's young people in a way in which we've never seen before. This past election, we saw a 20-point swing among voters from 18 to 29, and it was a direct result of the president's campaign strategy of reaching young people where they are. While Kamala Harris basement and shied away from long-form interviews, President Trump went on Joe Rogan. He went on Theo Vaughn. He talked to everyone and anyone who would listen to him. And that is exactly why we won and why young people left the Democrat Party in droves and continue to do so.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. An incredible product to sell. Are we going to see that happen again in the midterms, though? Because there is polling that suggests that we won't see it. A recent poll found that 35% of voters aged between 18 to 29 said they'd vote for the Republican candidate, which is down from 39% in their poll in May. What do you make of that? Because we've also seen polling and just how wrong the pollsters get it, because throughout 2024 we were told that Kamala Harris was ahead and then it was neck and neck, and then of course Donald Trump won all swing states and the popular vote.
You know, you're exactly right. You know, November 5th, 2024 taught me the only poll to believe is the one on election day. And so I think that's the strategy we're going to be taking here. But we're not going to rest on our laurels. You know, we're not just going to rest on the fact that we were able to achieve that monumental feat with young voters in 2024 and just think it's going to automatically happen in 2026. The strategy remains the same. We're going to go to where America's young people are. We're going to take our message of absolutely of hope, opportunity, and all of those things that excited young people and brought them to our side to begin with, because we realize that unlike Democrats, we don't take these votes for granted. We don't believe that young people should just vote for us because of so-called vibes. They should vote for us because of policy.
CJ Pearson, it's funny, 6 months on, leftist media still cannot cope that Donald Trump won. And if you watch outlets like MSNBC, this is their suggestion to the Democrat Party over how to win over young voters.
You're advising a Democratic politician on how to speak to young people and how to get them more engaged in Democratic politics. Do you say they've got to run on tax hikes? Is it a Bernie Sanders style campaign where you say, I'm going to tax the billionaires? There shouldn't be a billionaire class. There should be more equity. Is it a Democratic socialist campaign? Is it what Zoran Mamdani is doing?
I think those messages are on the right track.
I mean, when someone as radical as Zoran Mamdani is the new face of the Democrats, I think they are in trouble. But before I get your thoughts on what the Democrats should do, what's your assessment of the mainstream media over in the US and the role it played in the election? We saw CNN describe Donald Trump's assassination attempt as a fall. MSNBC kept calling Donald Trump Hitler on repeat. I mean, what's going on with the media in the US?
These people just don't get it, you know, and I think they just seem so committed to acting like clowns. It almost makes you want to go to every newsroom in America and just hand them a bunch of balloons. It's getting absolutely ludicrous. But, you know, I'm okay with the media not getting it, because every single time they show that they don't get it, the American people were the same way in which they did in November. They resoundingly come out and support President Trump. When they spread all these ridiculous, baseless conspiracy theories about the president, the American people rejected it. Why? Because no one trusts people anymore, because all they know how to do is lie.
Well, someone else who still doesn't get it is axed MSNBC host Reid. She's now launched a YouTube channel where she invites guests on to discuss the dangers of the MAGA movement. Look at this.
Some of the other like pundits or podcast people starting to shift from saying this is good about MAGA or not. And I'm like, you're being so short-sighted. This is not a good movement to be attached to.
No.
This is not. I can tell, and I'm saying that because I'm a Democrat and a liberal. No, I'm saying it is a toxic, dangerous, anti-American, anti-democratic move.
Yeah, I don't think they're convincing anyone. But Joy Reid also went on Piers Morgan Uncensored recently, where she, of course, had to claim that Donald Trump ran a racial identity campaign and the ICE deportations that are being carried out are not about removing people who are in the country illegally, but it is all about race.
Masked federal agents sweeping up cooks, abuelas, people who work on farms, picking up dishwashers, any brown person. And Tom Homan said, based on one criteria being their appearance, it's overwhelmingly brown and some black people. We're not seeing them sweeping up white folks on the street. Donald Trump ran a racial identity campaign. And yeah, this is America. That is appealing to, unfortunately, a lot of Americans.
Well, actually, it turned out to be very appealing to Latino Americans who voted for him in record numbers. More Latinos voted for him than voted for Kamala Harris, the non-white candidate. More Black Americans, African Americans voted for Trump this time round than first time round. So for
Not
this,
true.
for this,
Statistically, it was the same.
No,
The same number of black
it was
Republicans
actually
voted for him. That's always
more Black Americans voted for Trump
Google
this
it.
time than
It's the
last time.
same.
Piers Morgan is correct there. More Black Americans voted for Trump last year than in 2020. So Joy Reid just doesn't want to accept the truth. Why are we still hearing this fake narrative from people like her?
You know, Joy Reid is in absolute denial, and it's probably why she's unemployed, to be quite frank with you. But I'll tell you what I actually saw here in the States. I saw Black and brown Americans lead the Democrat Party in a way in which we've never seen before. When I went to Black barbershops, when I went to Black churches, I would often ask the question, what has the Democrats done for you lately? And every time I asked that question, they would scratch their head and say, you may have a point there. And so I think that these people are in denial because they're just so scared of what the reality of this actually means. If they lose their grip on the Black community, their grip on power absolutely fades away. But another thing that actually drives me crazy is that Donald Trump is doing exactly what he said he would do. I know it's kind of a crazy thing for a politician to actually deliver on their promises, but Donald Trump said he was going to secure the southern border, and deport illegal aliens. Black people support it. Latinos support it. Why? Because we're American citizens, period.
Yeah, and he has a mandate to do it. He's delivering on his promises. This week we heard from Joe Biden's son, Hunter. He sat down with YouTube personality Andrew Callahan, where he unleashed on the Democrats. Let's just take a look.
David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod. And David Plouffe and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made $40, $50 million off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history.
Oh, he is unbearable, but he has seemed to have offended the Pod Save America guys. They've responded to Hunter Biden, reminding him that he's a liability and should be ashamed. Listen to this.
You know what I mean? It's just this sense of entitlement that, like, from Biden, from his family, from the inner circle, that he was, like, owed the presidency, owed a second term. It's just very rating.
But one thing we know is that Hunter Biden, throughout Joe Biden's presidency, was a terrible liability for him. And put the addiction aside, it is because he was on Burisma, because he became an artist, because he was part of a kind of like sleazy Washington that, as Tommy said, people hated. You were a liability. You should be ashamed of the ways in which you made your father's political life worse. And like the idea that we're going to listen to you now, like, give me a break. It's ridiculous.
But in a sign of just how desperate the Democrats are, The Atlantic has put out a piece claiming that Hunter Biden's recent interview unveiled a straightforward, pummeling aggression that the Democrat Party has been missing. So are the Democrats actually considering making Hunter Biden the face of the party?
These people need help. These people need help. I don't even know where to start with unpacking this, right?
Yeah.
You have Hunter Biden going off, on the Pod Save America bros, who now are starting to sound like they're auditioning for a primetime slot on Fox News. Where was that energy being critical of Hunter Biden during the election when we were saying that he was a liability, when we were saying that he engage in a pay-for-play scheme and use his last name to unduly benefit from the role and office of his father? Where was that energy then? But now when Hunter Biden comes for them, they have, all the bad things in the world to say about him. But also, too, I welcome that Atlantic piece. Thank God for it, actually, because if the Democrats are this dumb that they think that making Hunter Biden the face of their party is going to lead to electoral success, then they still haven't learned their lesson. And if the best that they have on their bench is Jasmine Crockett and Hunter Biden, then Republicans are going to probably run this country for the next several decades, and thank God.
Yeah, well, look, either Hunter Biden or Zohran Mamdani, which was suggested on MSNBC. Do you have some free advice for the Democrats? Because it seems as though their party and its brand is just going from bad to worse.
I think so. Absolutely. My advice with them would be simple: is actually go out into real America. Leave your cozy apartment in New York City. Leave LA and actually go to Alabama, go to Georgia, go to Ohio, go to all these swing states that President Trump won resoundingly, and go talk to real people and ask them what they think of Jasmine Crockett and Hunter Biden. And I think they'll tell you exactly what they think, and it might just be a little different than what they actually believe.
CJ Pearson, RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Brilliant to speak with you.
Thanks for having me.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and right now the leftist media is not coping with the cancellation of Stephen Colbert's show, a program which, as we discussed earlier this week, was tanking in the ratings and losing tens of millions of dollars a year. But the hosts of The View believe that this really means the Constitution is being dismantled.
But my concern is, if it is political, then everyone should be concerned. People on the right should be concerned. People on the left should be concerned, because it's very clear that if it is political, this is the dismantling of our democracy. This is the dismantling of our Constitution, right? And so the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason, and that is freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom to speak truth to power. If that is taken away, if the comedians are being attacked, then that means our Constitution is being dismantled. That's right. That means the very rubric of our democracy is being dismantled. And I think every single person should be really, really concerned about it.
And according to MSNBC, it's very scary.
Approval from the Trump administration. So you wrote about this and you say Colbert's cancellation, simply not funny.
Yes, simply not funny, but also really scary, right? And even if it's not quid pro quo, the idea of self-censorship, and I talk about my grandfather Howard Fast, who was jailed by McCarthy during the House on Un-American Activities, that our government has done this before, that history is very much filled with moments like this.
But how is Stephen Colbert taking the news?
Donald Trump posted, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings."
How dare you, sir? Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go f yourself.
He sounds a bit like Hunter Biden. Well, luckily there are other comedians in America that could come up with some original material to make their point that they don't want to see the show go.
But if you're afraid and you protect your bottom line, I've got but one thing to say. Just one little phrase. You tell them. Go f yourself.
Well, let's get a take from a much more talented comedian, the host of Blaze TV's Primetime with Alex Stein. Alex, it's great to see you. Are you sad to see Stephen Colbert's show go? And what do you make of this over-the-top, insane reaction we've been seeing from the leftist media?
I mean, it's like Jon Stewart and Colbert for the last few years. It was just so lazy. I mean, to use a 4-letter word that you just, connected the dots to Hunter Biden. I mean, where are these guys getting their vocabulary from? I mean, like the New York subway, it's pathetic. So I thought that he would be a little more poignant with his message to Donald Trump, but this isn't Donald Trump's fault. Yes, Donald Trump doesn't like you, but your audience is 68 years old on average. And, that's my father's age. And I'm sure that audience is good, but he's just not hip anymore. I mean, that's not what sells, advertising. And his advertising numbers are horrible, and his show's losing, reportedly $40 million. So at this point, it's just more cost efficient for them to say goodbye to Stephen Colbert. And, it's just the sad reality is that he's not as good as David Letterman. He's not as good as Jay Leno. And he became some sort of political propaganda machine and did not try to be a comedian anymore. And that's where he lost his fastball, because the Colbert Report, Stephen Colbert at one point was a great comedian. The Daily Show, even with Jon Stewart, both were great. But now that they're just such political phonies when it comes to just not even giving Donald Trump a chance, it just shows you their true character. I'm happy to see Stephen Colbert go, because once again, I don't need to see any more vaccine needles dancing on my screen, encouraging people to get, a vaccine. Give me a break. Give us some comedy, not a lecture.
Such a weird dance performance as well. Let's talk about Russiagate. Donald Trump has called for criminal charges against Barack Obama for allegedly ordering an assessment that Russia meddled to help Trump win the 2016 election. This is what the president said.
Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about.
Barack Obama's office said that this was outrageous, but Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has doubled down at a White House press briefing today, alleging that the Obama administration promoted a contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. This is what she said.
Any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Alex, just how significant is this?
Well, it's very significant, but at the same time, it's not going to be significant at all unless we actually see some arrests. And I do believe that President Obama, if he committed these crimes, he does have some sort of presidential immunity. So, I mean, I'm really not going to hold my breath for the perp walk of Barack Obama, but I think there's no doubt that they obviously meddled in this election. I mean, Russiagate was propagated by CNN and every, mainstream media outlet. So when you know that they're in coordination like that, it was done on the media scale, it was done internally. So I think it's obvious that they tried to sabotage Donald Trump. They basically tried to do a coup, but unless I see arrests, I'm not going to be satisfied, because there's so much government corruption for them to say, oh, look, there's more officials being corrupt, but they don't do anything about it. Then once again, for me, it's just going to be another incident where I, start to lose faith in our government. So I want to see Donald Trump actually go after these people. And I don't even think, this is what he campaigned on. So if people are going to blame him and say, oh, this is all about revenge, I don't even think that's the case. I do think that the American people voted for him to expose Barack Obama and the left wing that is just so corrupt. So we need to see arrests, though. No satisfaction until we see some people go to jail.
Alex, there are also claims today that Russia had huge amounts of potential anti-Clinton dirt that it sat on in the final days of the 2016 campaign, including that Hillary Clinton was taking heavy tranquilizers that Obama and others found alarming. Some are concluding that if Russia was, of course, all in on supporting Donald Trump and hurting Clinton, it would have leaked this information.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, Russia obviously knew what everybody else knew. I mean, there's videos leaked of Hillary basically being thrown into a van like a rag doll. I think it was obvious that she did have health issues. And let's be honest, it is a very difficult thing to go on a campaign trail and live out of a bus, even if you're staying in five-star hotels, constantly going and doing these speeches. It's not easy. And I don't think that she had the wherewithal to do it. They lied about that. And it was even James Comey that brought up her emails. And James Comey is a deep state agent, in my personal opinion. So the fact that he was kind of one of the main catalysts that exposed Hillary Clinton, maybe he did that on accident, or maybe he did it because he didn't think Donald Trump had a chance in hell to win. So really, at the end of the day, it's not a surprise that Hillary Clinton was incapable of actually being the president because she had health issues and was on all kinds of prescription medication. And it's not a surprise that Barack Obama would do anything to stop Donald Trump from becoming president and potentially exposing some of the criminal acts that he might have done during his presidency.
Donald Trump today has signed a trio of executive orders, one of which directly targets ideological bias in government's use of AI. So according to White House staff, one of the measures will prohibit federal agencies from purchasing or promoting AI systems that embrace wokeism. Trump says the American people do not want woke Marxist lunacy in the AI models. And he's absolutely right about that, Alex.
Well, he is right, but if you saw Grok recently, obviously on X, went viral because it started to, say some anti-Semitic stuff. So now that they've kind of had to, reel in Grok a little bit. So listen, I agree. I don't want any woke nonsense with this AI, but I think that this AI can, spiral out of control very quickly. And I don't know how much the government can really control it. I mean, they're obviously going to put in guardrails, but at the end of the day, it's like, is AI a threat to you and me? I hope not. I do think it's a possibility that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs and people are going to be dumber because they're going to rely on AI instead of actually doing the work. They even, no, that's true though. They actually they've done studies. They say the more you rely on AI, the less it works your amygdala, the part of the brain that you need for memory, and that the more likely you're going to forget stuff and have dementia in older age. And I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying, once we rely on this so much, there's Uber drivers, and they've actually done a study on this. There's Uber drivers that have driven for over 10 years in the same city, but because they've relied on their GPS so much, they can't even tell you what street is which.
Yeah.
So that's an example
I'm
of
guilty of
relying
that.
on something.
I'm not an Uber driver, but
Exactly.
I'm guilty of driving around the areas which I should know by now, but I'm so reliant on my GPS.
Exactly right. And that's the same for every other application when it comes to using AI.
Okay, let's talk about the Epstein files. Look, we've previously discussed how Pam Bondi just absolutely botched the handling of it. Now there's been a few developments. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says that he intends to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell in the coming days. He released a statement, and part of it says, this Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truths, nor from the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. That changes now. And today, House Republicans subpoenaed Maxwell for a deposition to address Congress next month. Alex, are you feeling more confident that we are going to learn more, potentially see more evidence? What are your thoughts?
I must say my confidence level is very low. They didn't even get to vote on this before they went on a 5-week vacation, through the month of August. And hey, listen, it's the summer. I'm not going to fault them for wanting to take a vacation, but they could have voted on this. We could have, this is something that is a priority. It's all anything is ever talked about in the media or in everybody's personal lives, basically for the past 2 weeks, whether you like politics or not. So this Jeffrey Epstein information, for me, what I truly think and why my confidence is so low is that I believe that he was connected to people within the CIA and probably, intelligence agencies for other countries, and that if we actually know the truth, that it will just unravel the fabric of society, and it'll just, everybody will lose faith in our government and other governments, not just our government will be affected. And these are people that are high, powerful people that we don't even know about, people that are in the banking industry, people that are in all sorts of industries that we don't even understand, the military industry, we do not know how deep the rabbit hole goes. And that is why I don't believe that they're ever going to give us actual transparency. They're just going to blame it on Jeffrey Epstein and not, the other people that probably should get some sort of scrutiny for actually being associated with them. But at the same time, I do not believe that it's Donald Trump stopping it because he's on that list. That's a narrative that a lot of people have been saying. And maybe he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He took pictures with Jeffrey Epstein, but at the same time, he did kick him out of Mar-a-Lago. So what it all boils down to is, are we allowed to see it? There's levels of classified information that you and I will never be privy to. And at the end of the day, if they can have federal judges like the one Judge Rosenberg that just denied it, they're going to continue to do whatever they can to stop the American people and the world from seeing the truth.
Alex, just finally, before I let you go, we know that Donald Trump vowed to make sports safe for women again, and now the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee has updated its policies to suggest that it will comply with Donald Trump's Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports executive order. I mean, this is obviously such good news for girls, for women at the highest levels. What's the reaction to this been over in the US?
Well, a lot of people are happy, but I am not happy because this is why I'm frustrated. I actually like transgender athletes in women's sports because I'm a gambler and I like to gamble on them because they have an advantage. So I won a bunch of money on Meghan Khalif, you know, the gender neutral boxer. So personally, I like the transgenders in women's sports because it gives me a gambling edge. But everybody else and all the women that are affected by this, I'm sure they're all happy. But sadly, it doesn't look like I'll be going to Las Vegas much in 2025 and 2026.
Alex Stein, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to talk to you.
Thank you. Talk to you again soon.
Joining us now is former Victorian Liberal Party President and Sky News contributor Michael Kroger. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
The Albanese government has lifted the biosecurity restrictions on US beef, which could see the full resumption of exports into Australia. The government, of course, is dismissing speculation that the timing is politically motivated amid ongoing efforts to secure a tariff exemption from Trump. And there are right now concerns around how this could impact Australian farmers and our beef industry. Why have we seen the backflip?
Well, because we're a free trading nation, and you'd have to think that the two are linked, despite what the government says. I don't think there's actually been a ban. What there's been concern about here in Australia is clarity on where the beef comes from. So the Australian governments successively since 2019 have wanted clarification that the beef was born in America, the cattle were born in America, not born in Canada or Mexico. And that's been very grey. Now it appears that the Australian government has agreed to allow beef imports, including from Mexico and Canada. There was always biosecurity concerns because of mad cow disease, etc. So there's been a change of policy here. But is it going to affect the market in Australia that greatly? I don't think so. We've got the best beef in the world here. We're very happy to have beef from America or wherever, but it won't compete, Gav, with the quality of Australian beef, which we export a lot and export a lot to America, of course.
It's interesting, though, we're seeing this move by the Labor government, but Anthony Albanese is still yet to secure a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump. When's that going to happen?
Well, it'd be very wise to avoid a White House meeting with Trump because Albanese has been a personal critic of Trump, as has a number of his ministers and as has our ambassador in Washington, Kevin Rudd, who's sort of an embarrassment to our country. And so Albanese can't risk going into the White House, into the Oval Office, sitting there at a meeting with Donald Trump, with JD Vance sitting there, and our ambassador there, who basically called Trump a threat to democracy, a crazy man, a village idiot, etc., all those things. So Albanese can't risk a meeting in the Oval Office. So what'll happen is he'll meet Trump on the sidelines of some of these international fora, the G8, etc., and he'll say, I've had a meeting, and there'll be a picture opportunity. But he'll avoid a meeting with JD Vance sitting there because Vance is likely to launch into him, and no one will ever forget the Zelensky White House meeting, and Albanese can't afford a repeat of that.
Now, it's been revealed that more than 50% of voters rely on the government for their main income. The AFR is reporting that the federal and state government spending splurge has hit the highest level since the end of World War II, and the NDIS is a chief culprit, accounting for $52 billion in costs. So more than half of voters rely on governments for most of their income through public sector wages, welfare benefits or subsidies, according to a new report by the Centre for Independent Studies. I mean, Michael, that is an alarming statistic and not sustainable.
Well, it's our Mitt Romney moment, isn't it? Romney warned about how his chances of winning were difficult because too many people were relying on government. Look, the problem in Australia is the problem in Western democracies around the world, which is unsustainable government spending and unsustainable debt. And the American debt's going from 36 to 39 trillion. Here in Australia, we've got a much smaller economy, obviously, but our national debt is going to 1.2 trillion in gross terms in about 3 years' time. Most of the growth in employment in this country has come from public sector jobs, wage increases coming from the government sector. I mean, it's just unsustainable, and you get to a point where sooner or later, someone in Australia, some governments in the Western world will say we have enough debt, we can't keep going on. The cost of servicing debt is, beyond normal limits. These are record debts and deficits, and in Australia, it is completely unsustainable. And the government here got re-elected basically because it, offered to spend a lot more money than the opposition. That was central to its re-election campaign, which is very popular with the electorate. But it's not possible to keep going this way. And sooner or later, there's going to have to be an opposition or a government that says we have to draw the line under this, because in a rich country like Australia, a first world country, one of the richest, healthiest nations in the world, half the country on government benefits, that's not sustainable.
No, not at all. Let's talk about net zero. Susan Lee is facing pressure over the coalition's growing concern for the net zero policy. According to The Australian, the Western Australia Liberal State Council is reportedly joining forces with the Northern Territory and South Australia to abandon net zero. We know that Shadow Home Affairs Minister Andrew Hastie initiated a motion to the Liberal State Executive for the Federal Party to ditch the policy. Michael, where's this going to go?
Well, it's going to be increased pressure in Australia to drop the net zero commitment. It does look as if it's fantasy land. We'd all like to get to net zero. Everyone agrees with that. But the cost of it, the possibility of it, it relies on huge amounts of renewable energy, which is great in theory, but country people have to put up with the wind towers all over rural Australia, thousands of them, which they don't want, obviously impinging upon their land. We've seen a lot of projects in Australia for offshore wind collapse because it's just not economically sustainable. And Australians are now starting to understand, well, look at China and India, two of the biggest emitters in the world, are not committed to net zero. Why are we one of the few countries in this region committed to net zero? It's doing great economic harm to the country. And so the debate in Australia is going to get louder and louder to drop net zero. You'd like to keep the commitment, but the government's got to show how we're going to get there. And I just don't think it looks good.
No, I agree with you. Look, a couple of global stories. Let's turn to the UK, where more protests are expected to follow those in Epping after protests broke out in the Essex town after a migrant was charged with sexual assault. And there are, of course, growing concerns that mass migration is threatening community cohesion. Can I get your reaction to what's been happening over there?
So this is a problem a lot of Western countries around the world are facing. Why wouldn't you, if you were an impoverished person from a third world country, want to get to Britain, want to get to America, want to get to France? Of course you would. You'd want to take your family for a better life. But it's just not possible. There are tens of millions of economic migrants who would like to, live in Western countries. It's just not sustainable. And so the problem in Britain is a bit like in America, a weakness of government, a failure of government to put in place ways of stopping illegal immigration. You have sympathy for people, but it's just not possible for countries like Britain to have thousands and thousands of people arriving every week, undocumented economic migrants. Now, in Australia, as we know, we stopped the boat people coming. We turned around boats. Controversial policy, but we turned around boats basically from Indonesia where it was safe to do so. And of course, the British government, Conservative and Labor, have been hopeless. They have no idea what they're doing. And no wonder Nigel Farage is ahead in the polls, because successive Conservative and Labor governments have just been hopeless. The French have been hopeless, the British have been hopeless. The answer in Britain is to do what we did here, to turn around boats back to France where it is safe and legal to do so. And if you have to transfer them to other boats to make sure they get back safely, that's what needs to be done. I mean, these poor people, and also you have to smash the people smuggling model, which was one of the reasons the illegal trade stopped in Australia, was because we let everyone know, we let the potential migrants know that if you come to Australia, you won't be able to stay here. We engineered offshore processing for people. So to break the people smuggler mould, that is critical to the whole resolution of this problem. And the Starmer government and the previous Conservative governments appear to be hopeless at dealing with this issue, and no wonder Farage is winning in the polls.
Finally, to the US, I want to get your thoughts on the Democrats, because Tim Walz has announced that he's not running in 2028. Let's look at this.
Last two quick questions. First question that people would kill me if I didn't ask. Are you thinking about running in 2028?
I am not. I am not. And my job, and I say that, I am doing all I can to help build the party and make sure whoever that person is wins.
Well, we appreciate
And I think we need to flood the zone with people.
Oh no, Michael. What are the Democrats going to do now?
Well, there'll be an outbreak of mass depression in America today, knowing that Tim Walz is not going to run for the nomination in 28. I don't know how people will be able to get to bed in America today. I thought his performance was the performance of a clown, quite frankly, as the running mate of Kamala Harris. He's not a serious person, this bloke. I mean, he got up at that rally one day and said his major objection to the Republicans was that they'd taken the joy out of politics. Not world poverty, not crime, not illegal border crossings, not wars in the Middle East and in the Ukraine. Joy was his main complaint. This bloke, thank goodness he's not running. He wasn't going to win anyway. He had as much chance of winning the presidency as I have, and I'm not an American citizen. So I think the likely candidate will be Kamala Harris. Why wouldn't she run again? What's she got to lose? She can lose again, but she can political win. So to me, she looks like the candidate for the Democratic Party. As bizarre as that sounds, she's only got Gavin Newsom to beat. He's got a shocking record in California. And I think, people are going to say to her, why don't you run again? She'll probably get the nomination because the left control the Democratic convention. So Kamala will have to find a new running mate, and sadly, it ain't going to be Tim Walz.
Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to talk to you.
Pleasure.
New details have emerged about rocker Ozzy Osbourne's final days following his death at age 76. Riley Sullivan is a lifestyle reporter here at skynews.com.au, and he's always across the latest celebrity headlines. Riley, great to see you.
Great to be back.
So Ozzy Osbourne's wife Sharon and their family have opened up about Ozzy Osbourne's passing. What's been said?
Yeah, such sad news. The death of Ozzy Osbourne, legendary rocker, Black Sabbath frontman. As you said, he just performed for the final time weeks ago. He had a farewell concert that was supported by Metallica and Guns N' Roses and all these other sort of legends. And I think it was really a send-off that he wanted. I kind of think about, what Frank Sinatra used to say, my way. I think Ozzy Osbourne lived his life his way. It was a hard life at times. He came from very humble beginnings, very hard rock and roll lifestyle, problems with drugs. And then later in his life, I think he really found happiness, for his wife Sharon and their 3 children. Absolute tragedy. The families said in a statement that he was surrounded by love and that he died definitely, surrounded with their support. And I think it's sad, especially I think of his wife Sharon, their showbiz marriage, I think in Hollywood and in entertainment, one of the longest running marriages. They were married in the early 80s, married until his death. Very, very sad news. But, I think it was a very touching sort of symbol to know that he was able to have a farewell and he was able to perform one final time, perhaps knowing. It's interesting to point out that the family hasn't disclosed a cause of death. I think it is a public knowledge that he was suffering with Parkinson's and he had other health problems. But in terms of a cause of death, nothing has been revealed. But definitely seems like there was a sign, or there was perhaps final months and weeks, and definitely he did it on his terms.
Okay, well, an insider at streaming giant Netflix has claimed that the Sussexes' $100 million content partnership, I should say, is on the chopping block. Do you think this could be a sign or the end of Harry and Meghan's relationship with Netflix?
Right. I think we can quite confidently say at this point, the deal's over. So that initial 5-year contract, the $100 million legendary partnership, is all but done. That is expiring within the next few months, and it's understood that Netflix will not be renewing that. They will be transitioning the Sussexes onto a new type of partnership called a first look deal. A first look deal is essentially, it's very popular in the entertainment industry. It basically says, all right, if you've got a project in the works or a TV show or something you want to make into a movie, we get first sort of run at it. And that means that Netflix can pass on it. If they're interested in it, they could say, all right, you have to sort of take it to us first. I think that this is a sign that they don't really see too much value in the Sussexes. The numbers have been dismal. Of course, With Love, Meghan is coming back, but there was some streaming data that came out recently that revealed that show was barely in the top 400 shows on Netflix. And actually, this was quite a sort of poetic sign. Meghan's sort of former show Suits, reruns of Suits, are actually more popular on Netflix than her own show.
That does not surprise me.
Right. So there's a sort of there's a lot of I don't want to say Schadenfreude, but definitely I think the ego would be a bit bruised. The other one, of course, was Polo. Remember that flop Harry put out, Polo? I mean, that show just disappeared without a trace.
Didn't it?
Right. You know, so I think from Netflix's point of view, look, they got the big thing. They got the docu-series that came out a couple of years ago that had a lot of revelations, did a lot of damage, and was very popular. So I think that from their point of view, they can say, look, we got the big scoop. But, I mean, in 2025, I think we're done with the Sussexes.
Yeah, I think we are. Look, and a Sussex insider has claimed that Prince Harry is prepared to reconcile with King Charles, even without the support of Meghan Markle. So what's the latest on this proposed peace summit?
Right. I think this is a really crucial detail that's come out this week. An insider has said that Harry is sort of continuing negotiations and discussions and that they don't necessarily include his wife. That's not to sort of spark any speculation about their marriage. I think their marriage is strong, but I think that Harry has understood that his family may never accept Meghan Markle. I think that, you know, just the timeline of events has just been so catastrophic in terms of the institution, but also on a personal level. Things that have been said, especially by Meghan, but also by Harry, have done great personal and reputational damage to Charles, also to William and Kate. And I think from their point of view, they're always going to be on guard. I think any type of peace summit, if it ever does happen, I don't think it would be, they could never really let him back in. How could you? You know, this is the person, you know, just as a reminder, in these interviews, you know, there were allegations of racism by an unnamed royal. It was later alleged that the unnamed royals were Kate and Charles. You know, that was never confirmed. The Sussexes denied that, but it was in that Omid Scobie book.
Yeah.
You know, those are absolutely, you know, very, very defamatory, reputation, sort of decimating kind of allegations. And of course, after something like that, you know, how could you trust them again? I don't think they'll ever trust Harry and Meghan again. But I do think that Harry could, you know, sort of have a heart-to-heart with his father. I do believe that that is a possibility. But in terms of, you know, Meghan coming back in, I think she's happy where she is. I think that she, from her point of view, I don't think she's interested in reconciling with them either. So it sounds like everything's sort of moving along as it should. Harry is open to it. From a family point of view, it is his father. But Meghan is happy to just sort of let him go off and do that.
Yeah, she's fine. She's got her Instagram back up and running.
Right.
And she's doing her own thing.
Doing wines now.
Oh, goodness. Now, there's speculation that Princess Beatrice could become a working royal. That has gone into overdrive after the royal took on a new role, once filled by her grandfather, Prince Philip. What do we know about this, about Beatrice's new gig? And is this a sign that she'll be taking on more duties?
Well, I think that this is another sort of significant sign. You know, this was a patronage she's taken on that was once Prince Philip's. Of course, Prince Philip was working royal as the wife of the late, great Queen Elizabeth. And this is, I do think it's a sign. I think that they are slowly giving Beatrice more responsibilities. She does have limited responsibilities. She is a counsellor of state for Charles. She's never actually been forced to step in for that role. But in theory, on paper, if there was ever an emergency and the monarch was incapacitated or everyone down the line, she would be called upon. So I think she's always been on standby. Another detail that's come out recently, which I found really telling, was her husband, Eduardo. He did an interview and revealed that they are largely living at St James's Palace. So we know that Beatrice does have a grace and favour home that King Charles, her uncle, pays for inside St James's Palace in central London, and it's now been revealed that they do live there. You know, there was sort of reports that they were living more in the Cotswolds and that they weren't that much in the sort of the centre of royal life in the palace. But I think the revelation that she's taking on more duties and that she's also living back at St James nearly full time, I do think it's a sign that she could become a working royal.
Riley Sullivan, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thank you.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.